Imagine a workplace where every employee feels valued, engaged, and inspired. Welcome to Incredible Workplaces, where exceptional work cultures are recognized and celebrated. Incredible Workplaces is dedicated to evaluating and certifying organizations that prioritize employee well-being, engagement, and inclusivity. Our assessments are grounded in the PULSE framework, promoting values and beliefs, unified communication, leadership development, supportive environment, and environment for innovation and adaptability. We offer 2 certification levels: Gold, focusing on self-evaluation, and Platinum, which includes comprehensive employee feedback for a holistic view of your workplace culture. Achieving certification enhances your employer brand, attracts top talent, and fosters a culture of continuous improvement. Beyond certification, we provide access to exclusive events, best practices, and a community committed to workplace excellence. Our certification programs are competitively priced to provide value for organizations of all sizes. Join the ranks of organizations committed to excellence. Visit IncredibleWorkplaces.com to start your certification journey today.
Super excited that we are Incredible Workplaces certified.
We are feeling pride to be certified as Incredible Workplace Organization.
We are very happy to be certified from Incredible Workplace.
Feeling proud to be recognized as Incredible Workplace Certified Organization.
Let's create workplaces incredible with Incredible Workplaces. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and once again, welcome to our LinkedIn Live called Culture Connect. And we are here on our episode 10 today. And we have with us Anna, who is the co-founder and chief investment officer of Venture Factory. First of all, Anna, welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
And to our audience, when I interacted with Anna, I could figure out that there is a complete profile that works for multiple and diverse countries. And I think that's very interesting for us because in Incredible Workplaces, and especially in this Culture Connect, we bring a lot of global leaders. Anna, that is our show where we want different country leaders to come and talk about what have they done in their own country. But a cherry of the cake is if they know they have worked on multiple countries and can give some perspective on that. So once again, welcome. And what I would like to, request you to share with our audience a little bit about your background so that when we are having this conversation, they can connect with you well. And again, I ask, and I also request my audience to ask questions in between this show to Anna. I'll try to take as much as I can with the limited time we have. So over to you, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you today. As you know, I'm very particular about making sure connections happen. And I think connecting is a keyword that we will be using across our whole life today. A little bit about myself. I've been in business for over probably 18 years now. And I have an experience that spans from healthcare to multiple tech industries. I have been working in the Middle East region, Latin America, US, and Europe, and I continue to work and serve these regions through partnerships and through different business models, right? I think one of the things that's very, very important when we talk about what brings us today here is, again, what really matters, which is a human-to-human connection. Because at the end of the day, we do business with people. And the most important thing is we do business with people we like. So we may as well learn and work a little bit on ourselves to ensure that we learned about the importance of connecting.
Well, that's wonderful. And I think we were talking about that also a little bit before we started live conversation. And I wanted to talk about it because I think the human connection and the relationship building, in my opinion, is the most costly affair, because what it needs is your time, right? And
Yes.
well, depending upon who you are, the time invested by you, the cost element comes there, and it needs a consistent effort that need to be done. And you have described it pretty much very well. And I really want you to share your opinion and your experience, your learning about how connections to be built, how to be nurtured and leveraged. So let's start from there, I think.
You touched upon a very important topic because investments are something very dear to me. And you mentioned that we invest time when we develop connections. But I would like to add to the fact that we not only invest time, we are also investing our reputation. And that's very important because these two assets are assets that we can't recover. It's very, very difficult to recover your reputation as much as it's very difficult to recover your time. In fact, I think it doesn't matter if you're Anna or if you are Elon Musk. We are all subscribed to a package that is a 24/7 package, right?
Yeah.
And the time we have to invest, like you said, depends on the value that we have professionally. But there's also a reality. There's so much you can only do every day. So we may as well invest the time we have daily for a purpose. And I think a lot of times we forget or we misunderstand that human connection requires purpose and requires alignment. And when I'm saying it requires purpose and alignment, I'm talking about purpose aligned, values aligned. And I would say these are basic pillars in order to, build trust. Because when we talk about connecting, we are talking about enabling ecosystems. And you can't be part of an ecosystem without trust.
Yeah, I think absolutely right. And I always said that trust is the basic block of starting any relationship that you have to, whether personal or professional. So great. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about that more. But because you are a chief investment officer, and it's it's about business, it's about growing organizations, growing countries, right? And currently you're very much active in Middle East, and you have been working with diverse countries itself. Can I ask you what is that normally Anna does, right? What is that Anna is trying to achieve with her venture factory and supporting Middle East? Tell me more about that to our audience as well.
Okay, I think every professional has a purpose on their career and has a place where they want to reach. If you ask me, how does the finish line look like for me? I would give you a very basic definition of leadership. Because for me, leadership is the ability to turn more people into leaders. I think anyone that has people working with them or people within their network without having the capacity to affect them, to bring the best of themselves and to become the person that reaches their full potential, then you're not a true leader. And
Hmm.
for me, the overall goal, the dream would be to say, you know what, I helped this many scale ups or I helped this many founders become the leaders they wanted to be. And sometimes this does not have to do with, okay, we secured investment. Sometimes it's not about the investment. Sometimes it's about turning that leader, turning that professional into an into an investable asset.
Hmm.
Because you can have the best idea in the world, but if you are not investable yourself, why would anyone give you money, right? So for me, the finish line looks like helping a lot of different founders, especially within impact ventures, to reach the finish line. So
Yeah, that's
this is where I am at the race right now with myself.
well, that's really really incredible. Although it's a little bit off the topic, but I can't stop myself asking this question to you.
Please go
Uh,
ahead.
there, I'm sure, because in because of your role, there are a lot of founders and co-founders. Those are coming to you either for investment purpose or maybe taking advice how they can grow their organization, right? What are the couple of advices that you, or the things that you see, and the couple of advices that you give it to them? Share that with us, our audience.
Okay, so let's say we are talking about two different scenarios. One of them is to grow, and the other is to look for investment. I would say one of the first things you want to do is to separate these two things a little bit, because there is a very thin line that can divide these two. Growing not necessarily is attached to securing investment. Sometimes a company does not need investment, but in order to scale, what they need is to be in the right region. Let's say if you're a small startup with a brilliant technology in Estonia, okay, and you have already reached peak in Estonia and you're serving the full market, maybe from there, for the cost you have in Europe, for Europe works. But if you're really looking at entering a global market, right, with all the different taxes and all the different trade elements that have to be considered, perhaps you lose competitiveness. So relocating in many cases or creating branches of that same company look like a plan in order to scale, right? To scale in terms of growth. So not necessarily they need investment. Maybe they do have the investment, but what they don't have is the right kind of partners in order to create the new joint venture or create the new partnership or even branch out, okay, to a new country. Because branching out to a new country is a whole new adventure. And a lot of founders that I meet regularly have never left their own country. So can you imagine, for example, a lot of American startup founders who have always done business in the States and very limited to the States, they don't have much experience in the Middle East. And what it looks like for them in order to scale is a Google search, or today could look like a Perplexity, a ChatGPT, or a search of that sort, which sometimes it's not going to give them the right kind of answers on who to partner with in a specific region, right? And these are the kind of things we are looking at in terms of securely scaling, right? So again, not every scale up or not every startup that's looking to grow is looking to grow through investment. A lot of them are looking for expansion. And I would say more and more we see scale ups looking for expansion rather than investment. So yeah, I think understanding the difference between these two things is very important, right? And I would say it depends where you want to scale, because trying to scale in the Middle East has a certain flavor, and having to scale in the States has a complete different sound to it, right? So it will all come down to what do you want to do and in which particular region in reality.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I think I totally get your point that there are two different stages where people need to go, and because I couldn't stop myself, and I just wanted to kind of ask, because you're the right person to ask that question. But let me just move this conversation to a little bit of what Incredible Workplaces also tries to do. We are helping organizations to build an exceptional work culture. Now, when we talk about work culture, or culture for that matter, varies from organization to organization and country to country. And I would say within a country, even region to region, that changes a lot. And you have been working with multiple like regions in the world, right? And as you mentioned, Europe, Latin, and Middle East that you're currently very much invested in. My question, I think I would say, let me take this from one of the questions that we have from our audience is the role of the cultural intelligence, right? Like understanding what the culture is in building and sustaining a long-term international partnership. Because when you're talking to somebody outside your country, it always helpful that to understand what kind of culture that person is coming from. How do you think that helps, and what role that is play, and any story that you want to share with our audience, that would be awesome, where you could get best out of it.
Sure, absolutely. I would love to change a little bit the way you expressed it, because I have come to the conclusion that it's not about cultural intelligence, but it's a lot more about cultural sensitivity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think cultural intelligence looks as a very business driven kind of expression, which I respect a lot. But I think we are looking more in terms of cultural sensitivity, because, see, one thing is if you're trying to do business in the States from one state to the other, or for that matter in India from one state to the other, at the end of the day, somehow you're all under one big umbrella, which is India or the States, right? So let's say every state has their own values, every state has their own traditions, and their own set of social behaviors that are, let's say, considered regional. But there are still universal values and universal systems that apply to the whole culture of that particular country. When you're doing a cross-border kind of collaboration, or when you're looking at a cross-border partnership, I think the most important thing, first and foremost, is to understand why are you looking for this partnership,
Mm-hmm.
and what are you willing to give to this partnership. Because sometimes I see a lot of people making the mistake of trying to get into a partnership where they just want to take from that partnership. And the most important thing in order to be partners is to say, this is what I can give to this new region. Let me learn what else can I give, and walk
Mm-hmm.
with the right foot to that region and offer what I have, and then see what I can take. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there are two things here. One of them, again, like I said, cultural sensitivity is massively important, and cultural sensitivity is a lot more than just business intelligence or cultural intelligence. Why? Because cultural sensitivity does not come from a Google search.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe business intelligence does. Maybe I would say cultural intelligence could come out of a business search, of a Google search, but cultural sensitivity comes from empathy, comes from leadership, and comes from understanding that when I go somewhere, I like to be welcome in a way that makes sense to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I go somewhere else, I also want to make sure that I at least know how to greet people, right? Or that at least I understand what are their basic, practices, what are their basic, let's say, do's and don'ts. And it takes just a little bit of research. And I don't think you need to be, a top senior level leadership position to actually think that maybe another human being in another region might interpret this gesture, or might interpret my choice of clothing in a way that might not be the most appropriate to enable a good business collaboration. So I think empathy is a key word. I would say probably cultural sensitivity is the next thing, which many times, you are from the recruitment background, and usually I talk to a lot of C-level people that want to join boards from different startups in the region, that want to set a foot here. And the first thing I say is, look, start by, bringing down every myth you have about the region. Start learning about the region. Feel free to ask, every question you need to ask about the region. Let me help you. Because so
Mm-hmm.
many times we have a lot of misconceptions. And I wouldn't blame anyone. I mean, we all know that sometimes the things we know them through the media, or we know them through Hollywood, or through many different channels, right, that are not necessarily the most representative to have accuracy. So for me, the most important thing is find a person, find the right partner on the ground that can train you, that can teach you a little bit of cultural sensitivity. But this has to come from the person that wants to enter the new market. Because see, we can't create a doctrine between you and I, right? And say, okay, if you want to come to India, you need to do this. If you want to come to the Middle East, you have to do this. We can't do that. It has to come from the other side. It has to be like, hey, Anna, I want to go to work in Saudi. How do I do that? What are my do's and don'ts? What should I be prepared for, right? What's very different from what you know from my culture that I have to be ready for? What are the things that you think would be very hard for me, right? So this kind of things are very important to keep in mind, but to keep them in mind not as this is a mandate to do business in this region, but to keep them in mind and to keep them at heart, especially at heart, as I'm trying to understand this new collective that I'm trying to partner with. And I want to make sure that our understanding is so solid and so strong that our partnership it's going to be sustained in time. And I think this is all about empathy, cultural sensitivity, being willing to learn, being willing to unlearn, because that's the hardest bit, being willing to unlearn. Yes, because there are so many taboos, right? Like, for example, a lot of people would say, oh, it's not safe to go to India alone as a lady. I mean, I have heard this kind of thing so many times, right? So there are many things that perhaps are rooted in a complete misconception that we need to let go of, right? And I think being a little bit open-minded and open-hearted in that sense, being really empathetic, and willing to learn about the people you want to partner with, because at the end of the day we do business with people.
Exactly, and I think so well said. So cultural sensitivity is the key. I always say this, that the first thing about interacting with any different region and country is to acknowledge is the fact that there will be cultural differences. So acknowledge that, and I
Correct.
think from there you kind of start your own journey. It could be a long journey. You can be serious, less serious, but at least acknowledge that there are cultural differences that might come, and just start working towards it to make yourself flexible, not that you are taking it in a wrong sense. And one other thing you said is has to be win-win. Every partnership, every relationship has to be win-win. It cannot be just one-sided, that you are wanting to take from the partnership and not willing to give to the partnership, because that won't stay for long. And one aspect of the whole thing was also about trust, right? What
Mhm.
will be your advice to leaders, whether business leaders, HR leaders, leaders in any area, to go with trust or to go with micromanagement? And if there is any situation where micromanagement is also good and trust might not be good, anything that you want to share with your experience here?
I'm going to say something that might be a little bit you know um, unpopular.
Controversial or unpopular? Okay, no worries.
I'm not sure about controversial, but unpopular for sure.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't think somebody that micromanages is a real leader.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my blanket statement. If you need to micromanage, you're not a good leader. If you need
Mm-hmm.
to micromanage, you didn't do the right homework hiring. If you
Very
need
well.
to micromanage, there is a problem within your organization that you as a leader are not able to solve. And perhaps you're not the leader for that particular team if you need to micromanage, right? I don't believe a successful leader has to rely on micromanagement, because see, if we were to micromanage in terms of investment, that would need to make sense to me in the bottom line. And if you're showing me as an investor that a particular executive is wasting 60 hours a week micromanaging, I would ask you to fire that person, because the time the person is putting to micromanage should be put into a more productive line in the business, right? So why do we need to hire somebody to micromanage others, right? So for me, the first idea that comes to mind is, if micromanagement is there, there is a problem or with the team or with the leader. And a leader is not going to micromanage. A leader is going to change the team after trying for a reasonable time to train the team. But if the team cannot be kept accountable, and if the team cannot perform in their positions, then that's a bad hire. And the leader has to assume the bad hire cost and move on, right?
Yeah, I think that is the hard part. I believe all the leaders, if you talk to them, they always say that they don't want to macromanage. But when you go a little bit deep into what they do on the regular basis, you kind of find that they are doing macromanagement, although they don't want to. And I think that one of the key things you said, and I 1000% agree, is it's not necessary. I think the first thing starts with that you have a bad person, you have a bad, not a bad person. You don't have a person that fits to the role that you want that person to play.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are going into the micromanagement, that means that the role that you created is not doing the job that you asked that person. And then it comes whether it's a bad hire or you don't have a mechanism in your organization to grow them. So let me ask you this: that what will be your advice, or let's say suggestion? Like, you find a leader who wants to, doesn't want to do micromanagement, but actually in the trap of the micromanagement. What will be your advice to that person to?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. I think you got cut. So
Yeah,
a leader that doesn't. Yes, please go ahead.
I'll say it again. A leader that doesn't want to do micromanagement, but is actually doing micromanagement. What will be your advice to
Macro
that
or
person?
micro?
Micromanagement.
Okay.
And what will be his advice to that person to do layer by layer?
So the question. Wait. The question is, does the person understand clearly the concept of micromanaging first and foremost? Because a lot of people say, I don't micromanage. But when you sit with them and you explain to them what's micromanagement and how does it look like, then they assume, oh, yes, actually, I was micromanaging the team, right? Micromanagement in a lot of people looks like treating the team as their children, which I do not endorse. I don't like the idea of, in this company, we are a family and, my staff are my kids or my children. I hear this kind of things a lot. And when I hear this, I'm like, nope, they are not your family. They are not your children. They are professionals. You're professional. And we need to create, of course, a very good working environment. But we shouldn't try to, dress up a toxic kind of practice with a maternal paternal kind of instinct. No, that's not how it rolls in business, in my opinion. And I think a leader that doesn't realize that they are micromanaging needs input from their own leadership, right, on how to improve their performance and how to improve their contribution to the company. Because at the end of the day, if I'm a leader, a C-level person that's micromanaging a team under me, right, the problem is my strategic contribution becomes an operational contribution. And then the question comes, is my salary paying for an operational function or for a strategic function? Right? And these are the business kind of questions and answers that we should be asking.
Yeah, totally. I think the amount of dollars that you're gonna spend on hours doing operation work is actually originally was paid for you to do a strategic work for that hour where you are right now doing operations. So, and it's better to find somebody who can do that operation job and make yourself free to do that strategic work for.
Of course. I just very recently read an opinion where they were saying the main function of a founder or of a CEO is to fire himself from as many roles as possible,
Very
right?
true.
And this is something that I've been discussing with a lot of different founders, and I've been saying, look, whenever you have the time, start assigning things to your team. Start putting, a lot of the different hats you're wearing today in different people and test them, rotate the hats, see how to make it work. But your actual function is to fire yourself from as many roles as you can. Because how are you going to reach, let's say, an IPO stage, okay, if you still want to micromanage things with your product team after 5 years in the company? I mean, after 5 years in the company, if you're micromanaging the product team, you don't have a company anymore, you don't have a product, you don't have investors, right? What you have is a flawed organization that's desperate for investment, right? So I think that's the kind of lesson that if it applies to a founder, it applies to any function, right? Sometimes I tell founders, just use the title of founder. Don't use the title of CEO, because that tells me two things. First of all, that you're very junior and that you're very much enamored of the word or the idea of being a CEO, but you have no actual idea of what's a corporate structure and what it should look like. You can't be the CEO of a 5-people company. In fact, you can't even be the CEO of a company if a board can't fire you. Only when the board can fire you, you can be a real CEO. Because you can scale to 100 employees, but you don't have a board yet. If the board can't fire you, you're not the CEO, right? That's how it works in corporate structure. So I think sometimes, especially in the startup ecosystem, we have some vices that we need to start getting over, especially because many of these companies grow exponentially in very few years, and in a lot of corporate structure gets really damaged on the way because they grow exponentially in a very short time. And sometimes this growth is not something for which the founders are really ready. And sometimes it's even a traumatic kind of experience because they don't even know what to do with their own growth, right? And they don't know how to let go. This is something that's very, very classic in founders. And so, yeah, a little bit of this is what I would say.
Yeah, I think there is a lot that people can learn as a business leader, that if they are still in the trap of the micromanagement, what can they do to come out of it? And I think it starts from realization of the fact that you are doing micromanagement and you are not paid for that. You are paid for a different kind of role that you need to do better. So I think it involves delegation of the task that you are working on, evaluating your team if they are ready to do what they end. I think I love the concept of firing yourself from the job that you're.
Look, Govin, I think one of the biggest issues we have in organizations is that the job description of these leaders is not very clear. And there is a lot of mix and match of strategic function and operational function. And because a lot of the time is being invested on the operational function, very little time of this C-level people, it's been actually invested in where they should be contributing the most, which is in the strategic part of the function. You don't need a CMO that is going to be supervising that the posts go out on Instagram every morning at 8 a.m. If your CMO has to do that, means two things. You hire a very bad CMO, or your CMO is understaffed, under budget, and much more, right? But in the right kind of conditions, with the right kind of structure, a CMO should not be concerned whether a post has a mistake or not. You have a social media manager for that, and the social media manager is accountable for that. Yes, the whole company has to obviously be protective of the company's reputation. If a mistake happens online, mistake has to be solved, somebody has to spot it, but it can't be the main function of a CMO to be after the social media manager. That's not how it works. And if the CMO has to do that function, then that's not a CMO, that's barely a marketing manager with an inflated title and salary.
Yeah, and I think that is a very good difference, because if you are coming to a CXO level, you need to be investing time more on strategic, less on operations in day-to-day.
Of course, because then what's the point for a company? Let's say when you're hiring a CMO, you can hire 5 different marketing managers for the same money. So if you're just going to have a glorified marketing manager, better hire 5. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that the job description and the KPIs that are set per position are very important. And sometimes I get to see, especially on LinkedIn, sometimes I look at these job descriptions and I'm like, oh my God, are we paying people for glorified operational titles? Because a lot of the job descriptions are the problem themselves.
Talk a little bit more about it. Like, what do you mean by that?
See, for example, what's the main role, according to you, of a C-level position? What are the main characteristics of a C-level professional for you?
Yeah, to take the business to the next level, as opposed to, and thinking about the future as opposed to thinking about what's going on.
Okay, how do we take the business to the same level if we just focus on the operational tasks?
Yeah, you won't be able to do that.
You can't. It's not viable, right? So the main function, the main role of the leadership team of a company is to focus, I would say, 70% of their time on strategic decisions, right? And maybe the last or the 30% left, it's okay. But you're supposed to have a team that's going to work on the operational functions. If not, again, you're not that C-level. You just have a title.
Got your point.
And I think having, I think having the title and being the actual position that you're representing are 2 different things.
I got your point. We are reaching, time flies, right?
Absolutely.
We are reaching to the end of the conversation. But I will take one interesting question that I have. I think there are so many. I think we need to miss those questions. But I'm just trying to figure out if there is any question that we did not cover in our conversation. All right, let's talk about a little bit on this one. So this talks about the hybrid and borderless work environment, right? Organizations working in multiple countries, right? And there are workers from those countries that have diverse culture, but the company is same, right? Now, how can a leader or leaders foster a shared culture across continent? Like, I'm sure you must have dealt with this kind of problem. What is your take on that? How they should foster this? Or is there a way to do it, or is there no way to foster a shared culture across continents?
Well, I think we need to separate a little bit what are we discussing here, because I think if we are part of an organization, the main culture we need to focus on is the organizational culture, right? And if we are talking about a company, look, for example, companies like Unilever are companies that I really respect a lot, because they are multinational companies that work with the concept and idea of being multi-local. And I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Go ahead, explain this more, please.
So, for example, being multi-local means I have a global vision, I have a multinational vision, I have a multinational structure, but when I'm serving, when I'm offering services or products, okay, I'm servicing in a multi-local structure where, for example, let's say, how does a multi-local multinational look like? Looks like, okay, doing a commercial perhaps from Coca-Cola, where you have the reindeers in the Coca-Cola with Santa for a Christmas ad. And maybe you have a very similar ad in the Middle East that has camels, right? Yes, of course. So, or for example, let's say when you look at Coca-Cola doing different campaigns across the states, okay, they don't focus on the same things they are focusing in the Middle East, and vice versa, which makes them a multi-local company, right? So you have a global culture, but then again, you have to focus on, localizing the product and localizing the employee experience, because you can't really have a global employee experience, because that's undoable. That's undoable. I don't think we can expect any company to thrive if we are looking at something of that sort. What we need to do, and this is something where I would love to go to, is a lot of times when we talk about collaborations, when we talk about cross-border partnerships, and when we talk about creating and enabling long-lasting partnerships, we focus a lot on contracts, we focus a lot on strategies, and we forget something as simple as language. And when I'm saying as simple, I'm saying it on purpose, because language is really, really complex. And I think language per se is a lot more than just the vocabulary you use. It has a lot to do with the energy, with the, when I'm saying energy, I'm not talking anything esoteric here. I'm simply saying, what's the kind of mood, the vibe, what's the kind of values that we want to communicate, the intangibles that we want to communicate. I think it all comes from that and to that at the end of the day. Because maybe, let's say, what you eat in the morning for breakfast is different than what Maria eats for breakfast in Miami and what I eat for breakfast in Dubai, right? But that doesn't mean that we can't understand each other, we can't collaborate, or we can't enable, a good working relationship. We just need to understand that there are different practices, there are different ways, right? And I think a company that is hiring multicultural teams has to do a lot of internal work to make sure that these small things are taken care of, right? And are understood in ways where I would say certain things have to be understood from an organizational level, where, let's say, certain words, certain tones, certain attitudes are not considered inclusive, for example. Or and when I'm talking about inclusion, I'm not talking about anything strange. I'm talking about simply representation. I'm talking about making sure that everyone feels welcome to the team, everyone feels as part of a strategic contribution. Because I think, one of the things that, in my opinion, fail when it comes to especially remote colleagues is the fact that we forget what are we working for, and we fall in that kind of loop. I'm not sure if you're there. I think
Listening to you.
I think we are getting disconnected.
No, I think you're absolutely live, and I can hear you. Our audience can hear you. Please go ahead. Yeah, no, we can hear you very, very nice. Very, very nice. Are you with us, Anna?
Are you back? Okay,
Yeah,
I think I'm back.
Yeah, we can hear you since, like, we heard you till the last download.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I thought I got this.
Yeah, yeah. Please continue.
So yeah, no, I think it's about that matter.
Yeah, and I think a couple of things that you said that is really, really true. One, that organization can still be a global organization and respect the culture at the local level, right? And not necessarily the culture that employee has, but it could be a culture. It could reflect in anything they do, right? You gave a great example of how the marketing to be done, an advertisement to be done, keeping the sentiments and the things that is important to that particular culture, as opposed to just applying one culture from you are based and copy pasting it to
So
everywhere.
just think about what happens with Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and everyone else in India with IPL, for example, right?
Correct.
IPL is not something that is promoted in the States. So, and the same way goes to the Super Bowl, right? That's not promoted in India, right? So I think it's very important to localize the experience, not just for the clients, but also for your employees, for your team members.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And as I said, the time flies. We have so many questions from my
Absolutely.
audience. We are really apologize to all those who have posted the question and we could not take it. I tried my level best, sacrificing my own questions that I wanted to ask Hannah by taking the questions that my audience had. But I think broadly the questions that audience asked has covered that what I wanted to cover in this conversation. So at the last, Anna, thank you very much. I know you were super, 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 super busy, and you still find some time for us and make sure that you fulfill your commitment to our audience. So really, really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure. And well, I'm looking forward to a next conversation.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Anna with us. She is the co-founder and chief investment officer of Venture Factory. A very, very impressive personality, a woman leader that everybody should look up to. Thank you, Anna, for coming to our show and really making this such a powerful impact. And I think the thought process were like, I would say, what like straight from your heart, no, not filtered. I think something that people should really, really listen to and learn from it. Any last words from your side, Anna, before we close the conversation today?
Well, I would say don't miss the chance to meet somebody new and to connect with people.
All right.
One
So
simple connection can change your history.
that's very true. And I think I'm also very much, very, like I'm an advocate of building relationship connections and all. I think that's really true. So take this to my audience, take this to the one who are live right now, the one who gonna listen to the recorded version. Take this advice from Anna. And with that said, thank you very much. Appreciate all of you being here. And see you in the next episode, episode 11th, with a new global leader talking about new things that matters to all of you. Till then, goodbye and have a nice day.